Hello and welcome to today's video on the 1st of May 2026, and the broad focus of this video is what's going on with Iran and America. Now, we've all lived through weeks of ceasefire because Donald Trump thinks that, he's going to be able to magically move hundreds of thousands of Marines and soldiers to the Middle East without the Iranians getting to find out and bombing them to bits with drones and missiles. But he's left it as long as he can. Now he's saying he's had enough. He's trying to turn around and say that Iran doesn't know who the leaders are, which is, I won't say bollocks, but it's bollocks. They obviously know who the leaders are. They know who's in charge. They know who's not in charge. They know who commands what, who does this, who does that. Because they did what you call a mosaic infrastructure, which sort of split Iran up into its individual counties, and each one is responsible for their own take on the war. So that's why you have Iranians firing at Israel, firing at the UAE, Kuwait, Qatar, all them kingdoms they're attacking because it's their orders to attack. Now, Donald Trump has made this out to be a war about nuclear weapons, trying to say that Iran are that crazy. If they had a nuclear weapon, they would actually use it and cause mutual assured destruction, which, again, it's absolutely bollocks. Iran never wanted a nuclear weapon. They don't need one. They operate the Straits of Hormuz. That is a game changer in the war. It's something that I can't believe Donald Trump was not informed about it, but because he's in charge, what he says goes. So when he says, right, they've closed the Straits of Hormuz, so we'll close basically the Persian Sea, the Gulf of Arabia and the rest of that area. And again, just total nonsense. It's like spitting your dummy out because they did this, I'm doing that, and I'm taking my football and going home and no one's playing with it. That's the kind of person he is. He's also the kind of person who all his life he's lied. In fact, even when he got married and gave his vows, there was lies, because he had no intentions of being faithful and honourable and everything what goes with it. All he was interested in was what it looks like to the public and to the bankers. Now, because he sat in rooms with bankers and was able to lie through his teeth about what he's worth and what he's got, he thinks he can do the same with the American people. But it's not just a few bankers in a room he's talking to. He's talking to hundreds of millions of people, and if they can't see what a lie is, then they deserve everything what happens to them. Not that I hope anything does happen to them, but if you believe in Donald Trump, that we've won, they've got no army, they've got no navy, got no air force, well, let's put it straight. Iran never had an air force to start with. The navy just consists of small motorboats that they'd be able to smuggle weed from Morocco to Spain without any Coast Guard getting near them. That's how fast they are. They're also missiled up, and they've got missiles on the coast. They've got missiles inland. They've got missiles in the far east of the country where America can't bomb. And they're not daft. They've been preparing for this war for years. So if for 1 minute you think they're not ready, then you need to think again, especially these American generals. But as I said, Donald Trump, he's the executive officer. He's the equivalent of that Rutte who runs NATO. He's like the Secretary General. But what he says goes. So Trump, they've now possessed hypersonic weapons. They've never said anything about having hypersonic weapons, and I can only assume that they paid for the schematics either from a Russian. I don't think any Iranian would give them, but maybe a Chinese, maybe well, I'd say more a Russian than anyone else. Now, they've got this hypersonic missile. How many did we think they've got? How many do we think they've made in, even if they've been doing it for a year, I bet you they can only produce one every week. So they might have 50. But even if they've got 100, 150, it's not going to make no difference, because the minute they start bombing Iran, Iran is just going to decimate the Gulf states. They will not exist no more. They'll have no money. The kingdoms will be gone. And basically that's it for any power, whether it be the British, the French, the Americans. It won't matter, because there'll be nothing left there to sort of protect, which is what they say they're doing, you know, but they're not. They're protecting their own interests, and they're trying to shut off for as long as possible the amount of oil that comes out of Iran for China. And it's easier for them to do it there than it is for them to do it in China's backyard in the South China Sea. So what's going to end up happening is to get troops from the Gulf states across the Gulf of the Gulf of, what is it, Persia, and the Persian Gulf and the Straits of Hormuz. Anything that moves in that direction towards Iran is going to get wiped out. They've got surface to sea ship missiles which hit moving targets. That's what they're made for. And America might have a few of them, and they might think they're now kings of the world because they've got a couple of hypersonic missiles, but no one's seen them going off. No one's seen them work. You know, when Russia set off its Oresnik, the contrail from it was seen in Norway and Denmark, and they actually thought it was aliens coming to visit Earth, as if they would, especially after that golden record with the voice of Kurt Waldheim on it, the Nazi war criminal, you know. So that's what it was, the Oresnik. That Oresnik is the most dangerous weapon that man could make besides nuclear bombs, although the Oresnik's capable of carrying nuclear weapons. Now, the missiles have been sending to Israel, they have not cluster munitions, but they have, what do they call them? Let's call them cluster munitions because it's easier, yeah? And they're separating more or less in space, and they're landing, and they've got 24 separate missiles on them. But they're even now sending 4-ton missiles. They've got 4-ton missiles. Can you imagine the damage they'll do? Hey, whatever they strike, it's getting wiped out. Now, Donald Trump's being informed of all this, but he doesn't care. There's no way on this earth he's losing to Iran. Not a chance. And yet, Iran can't lose. They can't. They've gone the distance with him, and now they want a rematch. But America, shitbags that they are, they won't even bring their navy, their naval power, anywhere near Iran, because Iran will just obliterate it. They'll just sink them on the spot. So they stay far enough away so that their layered defences can protect it. But you know, in the Second World War, when they was attacking the islands on the way to Japan, they was using, on average, up to 10 aircraft carriers, 7 light aircraft carriers, 60, 70 destroyers. They had minesweep, they had everything they needed, yeah? And Donald Trump's only got a fraction of that. But he still thinks they've got the best military in the world. Now, because they've got an hypersonic missile, oh, Donald Trump will be throwing one out on the Oval Office table. Won't care who's watching. In fact, he'll probably get a fucking quicker job done with them all watching and cheering him on and clapping. You know what I mean? Because apart from J.D. Vance, they've all been on Epstein's Island together. So they've all been involved in sexual deviance. So throwing one out in front of people is going to be nothing to Donald Trump. It's the equivalent of just lying to the bankers that he's worth this when he's not. He's only worth that. So that's what he is, a barefaced liar. Now, don't know. No one can say when they're going to try and land Marines and soldiers into Iran. Maybe they just plan on taking a little bit of it. But even that's not going to work, because the amount of people who will pick up a weapon and fight till the death against America, there's just millions of them. And even if half of them are liars and they won't do it, they will do it because it's their homeland. And I'll say now, I wouldn't get involved if England was invaded. I might say it, but the reality is different. I would get involved. I'd get involved because it's my country, and it's, you know, it is what it is. It might be shit, there's no free speech, you can't do this, you can't do that, you can't protest about one thing, but you can protest about another. You've got Starmer coming out saying he's now Jewish, he's got Jewish relatives, and after he said that, his wife left him. You know what I mean? She probably thought, who the fuck do you think you are, bringing my family into all this shit? And it's true, so she's left him. There's no official confirmation of it. No one's come out of the door at Downing Street and said, right, Starmer's wife's left. Because if that happened, wow, it won't last 2 minutes. And believe me, before the end of this term in 2029, I guarantee you, war will be declared on Russia and martial law will be brought in to Europe and the UK. We're already that close to bringing in martial law. When things start getting bad because of the fuel shortages, lack of food, lack of everything, that's when there's going to be civil unrest in the country. That's the excuse Starmer needs to bring in martial law. And for those that don't understand, martial law means we're in power and that's that. Now, even though Russia are at war, in the autumn they're holding elections. Now, I know America has not got war on the United States, but they're having elections in November. Zelensky won't have them because he's scared to death of getting voted out, because he will be voted out, because all he's doing is just getting people killed left, right and centre. They're dragging them off the streets and just getting them murdered. And that's what it is. They're getting murdered, even though it's a so-called army that's at war. It's basically murder, and he should be held accountable for it. You know, he wants to hold Putin and his underlings accountable for what they've done in Ukraine. But what they actually done in Ukraine, eh? They've not done that much damage. They could do. They could just go back to Second World War tactics and send 1 million soldiers through Ukraine. Oh, and by the way, the two armies that stormed Germany and was getting to Berlin, one was the Ukrainian army, not just Ukrainians, but it was called the Ukrainian Division, the Ukrainian Corps, and the other one was the Belarusian. Now, Zhukov had the Belarusians, some other guy had the Ukrainians, and it was a race to get to Berlin. And if you think they're not capable of repeating the same scenario, then Europe are after them, we think. But again, back to Iran. If America thinks that's what it's going to do, it's already lost. Now, the UAE have left OPEC, yeah? That's the oil-producing economic countries, I think it is. I might be wrong, but that's what I think it is. And it's left OPEC so that it creates confusion, which is what the Americans want. They want the instability, because when there's instability, they're raking it in, selling gas and oil. Why do you think they've allowed the Russians to still sell gas and oil? Eh? Because America can't sell enough of it. So they let the Russians do it. They also let the Iranians do it. But now they can't do it and they're blockading them. But they're only blockading the blockade that was blockading the blockade anyway. So what's he doing apart from making a fool of himself? But he seems to enjoy making a fool of himself. You know, it's as if that's his second job. First job president, second job making a fool of myself. Do you notice how there's no mention of him going to China for a state visit, eh? Because he can't go to China while he's still at war, I mean, he's won. He's won. But he can't go to China and say he's won, because they'll just laugh at him and say, what have you won? You've won nothing. And they haven't. The only time they've won is when the Iranians surrender completely and without, you know, it's unconditional surrender. That's what they want from Iran. It's the same thing that the Europeans and the Ukrainians want from Russia. They want complete and utter unconditional surrender. How fit can you get? Since when did the losers declare what's going to go on after the war? Eh? They can't. Never in the history of warfare have the losers said what's what. It's an impossibility, but that's what they want. Zelensky, yeah, spent time in the Middle East selling his drone, killing, whatever, and there was a little video on YouTube about a plane releasing attack drones that take out other drones, but how it works, I've got no idea. They didn't show you shooting down any drones, just showing you firing drones. So again, he's probably sold them, yeah? He's probably got warehouses over there building drones for them. He's already got oil deals with Saudi Arabia to produce diesel for them and fuel. So doesn't surprise me if they've not got a few warehouses where they're building drones. At the moment, the drones are being built over Europe, in the UK, in France, in Germany, probably Italy, but it's like that with Italy, you never know. But definitely the UK, Germany and France are making them, and they're making them, and you know, they're actually flying through airspace that is uncontested. They shouldn't be able to do it, you know. Russia said to Kazakhstan, if you don't put a stop to it, we will. And they will, because while they can go through Kazakhstan, they can hit further into Russia, which makes them feel like they're winning. Now, even if they stopped Russia exporting oil, they still wouldn't win. They can't win. Do you think for 1 minute Russia would allow the Ukrainians and NATO, because don't forget, NATO are funding Ukraine. That 90 billion loan that they give them, yeah, apparently it came from the European Union. Nah, came from NATO, because 60 billion has got to be spent on weaponry. The other 30 million, that was probably Zelensky's and his cronies. If not the full 30, at least half of it. They have said they want Ukraine to follow the rule of law. Not a chance of that. Fight corruption, not a chance of that neither. And then take Iran. They have the rule of law. Your Western governments will have us believe that they don't have the rule of law. What they have is just, yeah, you're under arrest. But that's happening in England. People are getting arrested just for saying things on the internet. And you know my videos, I must have upset the algorithm with the things I've said, because I'm getting no views, and yet I don't talk shit, you know what I mean? And maybe someone can't sit and listen to me for half an hour. Well, maybe you should do, and just look at what I'm saying, because what I'm telling you is from the estate. This is how it is. When I say from the estate, yeah, we see things that other people don't, because we've been the brunt of all the fucking shit what's gone on in the UK. It all ends up on our doorsteps. So we're the ones who know what's going on. You tell me 2 and 2 make 5, 99.9% of the country will believe you, but I won't, and everyone on my estate won't, and all the estates that surround my estate, they won't either, you know, and we're the 1% who know what's going on. That's why I know Starmers are wrong, and that's why I know Donald Trump's a wrong, and that's why I know von der Leyen is a wrong, and Merz and Macron with his man-wife, you know. There's nothing wrong with having a man for a wife, but don't be ashamed of it. If you married him, what have you got to be ashamed of? Hey, what he's got to be ashamed of is people will look at him and think, wow, what the fuck are you doing running France when you're a deviant? Because he is. And I'll say now, his wife, yeah, she was a paedophile. She had sex with him when he was 15, yeah? That is illegal, yeah? That is PDF material. And they don't deny it. They do not deny it. It's as if the French people accept that kind of behaviour. How can they accept that kind of behaviour when they allow thousands of illegal immigrants to get on boats and paddle across the English Channel? Eh? Just makes... I mean, if we're in partnership with France, why aren't France stopping it? Why is Starmer not saying, here, before we go any further, put a stop to the boats? Yeah? But like I said, there must be a reason as to why we're allowing illegal immigrants in. And again, they use the words men of fighting age. And Europe has just brought out a conscription law. And these going to be the first ones conscripted, eh? You get a European passport wherever you are, France, Germany, Belgium, Holland. You fight for the European Union in their army, and if you don't die, we'll give you the citizenship. Yeah, you know, you end up like Ukraine, because Russia has got no intentions of invading Europe. If it does invade Europe, it'll be because of what Europe's done to Russia, not because what Russia wants to do with Europe. It can destroy Europe without sending a soldier over any border, and it's as if that's what they want, you know. That von der Leyen, she's a Nazi. Don't care what anyone says. She is a full-blown Nazi. And Annalena Baerbock, who's in the United Nations now, she is. And when I say she's the Nazis, what I mean is the grandparents were Nazis, and the parents believed in the ideology of fascism. So the kids, the grandkids, they pick it all up. It's called learnt behaviour. It's part of addiction. And that's how you get addicted, by learnt behaviour. Because when you learn to behave in a certain way, it's next to impossible to change the way you behave. But anyway, back to Iran, yeah? Iran knows what it's doing. Iran can't lose. They won't lose. And they think Russia's bogged down in Ukraine. No, it's not. It's still doing what it was doing this time last year, which is just slaughtering Ukrainian men in uniform. They're letting them do counter-attacks, because every counter-attack they do kills more men, and eventually there'll be no men left. There is 400,000 men of Ukrainian heritage in Europe who moved over here with their families. Well, they're all being deported back to Ukraine to fight. That's 400,000 men. If you add up the amount of men that have gone AWOL, you're probably talking close to 1 million men. Now, they can't get them in one hit, but they can get the deportees from Europe, maybe in the thousands or whatever, but there'll be no training for them. You know, regardless of whatever, they haven't got the time to spend 3 to 6 months training them in drone warfare, how to evade drones, how to take them out, you know what I mean, how to do street fighting, house to house fighting. They can't do it. It's like, you know, if you sent anyone from England over there, wouldn't last 2 minutes. Wouldn't last 2 minutes. You know, would be picked off. Same with Europe. Europe, they're not even going to get anywhere near Ukraine. They're just going to get wiped out. And they don't care. You know, what's going to happen when an entire brigade or a division or an army corps or an army group A, B, C or whatever it is gets attacked by missiles because they're all running in convoy, and that's it. They take out thousands of soldiers, and then there's body bags coming back to individual countries. Do you think people are going to want to go and fight then? Hey, when you send 1,000 men there and 600-700 body bags come back. That's another thing. I watched a video with a man who said that Donald Trump has got over 900 dead soldiers in Germany because he can't afford to bring them home, because the amount of press he would get for them coffins coming off the transport, he would just be taken out of a job straight away. At the moment, he's going through his 60-day congressional shit, you know. Oh, well, you didn't tell us about the war, and you've now been at it for 60 days, and what's going on? And you've got the light of Pete, Death said. I like that word, Death said. Not eggs death, Death said, because that's what he is. He's just an out-and-out warmonger, and Donald Trump loves him. He loves Cash Patel as well. Why, I don't know. Maybe it's because of his name. But whatever the reasons are, America are not going to beat Iran. There will be a settlement that is negotiated, and Donald Trump's going to have to come out of it like he's a winner, like he's got a better deal than Obama. That's what he's after. But whether he gets it or not, it's another thing. But until he gets something along them lines, this war's just going to continue. And I don't care what you say, Iran, all their missile-making capabilities and the drone-making capabilities, they're all underground. The people who are working there, they're living there. There's no one coming out to go home on a weekend pass. Be there working probably 7 days a week because they know it's an existential threat. And where can they attack? Where can the Americans actually attack from? Iraq? Doubt it very much. You know, you've got pure Shia militias on the border there. They will fight to the death to stop people going to Persia into Iran. Will they come from Kuwait? Doubt it very much, because again, it has a very high Shia population. Same with Qatar. The UAE, that just has slave labour, so they're going nowhere. So when you look at it, Donald Trump, what chance has he got? Hey, he's already told us he's won. He's told us he's won that many times. People think he has won. But if he's won, that's why he's had this break, this pause. So it looks like, yeah, we won. And then 4 weeks later, they go back to war saying, oh, Iran, they didn't give up their nuclear weapons program, so we've had to go back in. And it's the only way you can do it without the approval of Congress. And yet, the 1973 War Powers Act in America, it was there to stop people like Donald Trump thinking that because he's the executive, he can do what he wants. He can, but only for so long. So let's put it into perspective, yeah? How many aircraft carriers have they got? 2, 3? 3 at the most. One of them's second hand, yeah? The other 2 might have 2 air wings on it, maybe totaling 50, maybe say up to 70 odd planes. That's if you're lucky, that's an air wing, yeah? We've just started seeing the damage Iran have done to the American bases in the Gulf countries, where we was told, oh, they just took that out and did that. Nah, they fucking obliterated them. And if America thinks it's going back there to rebuild them, wow, it's dafter than some of the people I know. And I know some stupid people. Anyway, I'm going to leave it here because I can't think of much more to say other than Iran can't lose. America won't lose neither. Israel already knows it's lost. What Hezbollah are doing to them in Lebanon and in Israel itself, it's beyond belief. You know, they're using fibre optic drones, fibre optic FPV drones. That means no matter what electronic warfare they use, it's not going to work. So Israel, its army, its IDF, is being wiped out on a daily basis. And don't forget, they've only got to take out a few hundred tanks. Yeah, they'll still have the Air Force, they'll still drop bombs, but for every bomb they drop on Lebanon, missiles come flying back at Israel. So eventually, they're going to stop, yeah? Now, that doesn't mean Hezbollah won't say we've won, yeah? Hezbollah will just say the truth, that they've repelled the Israelis from taking control of southern Lebanon. Now, they want southern Lebanon because that's where everything's grown. It's like the Nazis with the Laban's farm or whatever it's called. You know, they need living space for the population. No, they don't. They need space so that people can come and settle there. But that idea is out the window now because it was classed as a safe haven for Jews. Now it's not. Now it's the equivalent of moving back to Germany in 1939, 1940. But there again, some people are daft, aren't they? But again, look at all the Gulf countries. Their lives were all intertwined with financial banking systems. They've got data systems there. They've got, some of them data, their AI, the amount of energy they need to run, it's unreal. So if you stop the energy where them data houses are, then AI's finished. AI, it's nothing, all it is it's just a better computer than what we've got. It's not a proper neural network. That's artificial intelligence. When a computer can run itself like your brain would, then I'd call it AI. Up to now, it's not. And again, look at oil prices starting to go through the roof. The paper price is, what, $120 odd, but the real price, that's when you're talking 180s, $200 a barrel, because you're competing against another country to make sure that you get your oil. So if you have to pay $200 a barrel or 220 or whatever it is, you will pay it, because if you don't, you'll go without. Look at India. Did you see the pictures of all the motorcyclists with the 5-gallon drums, all ready to go into Iran and collect oil, cooking oil, fuel for the bikes, diesel, all the oil they need, all the petrol chemicals and all the the petroleum products. They'll bring them over the border by hand. I think we seen it, didn't we, in Iraq, just before the Gulf War, where Saddam was sending convoys of tankers across the borders and selling it abroad. Well, that's what Saudi Arabia ended up doing, and the UAE and Kuwait. In fact, Kuwait and Qatar, they've already cut off everything. They can't sell now. Then you've got UAE, they're selling nothing. All the banking companies, they're leaving. So Iran's already done the damage it needs to do. It won't take much follow-on to make sure that they are the power in the Middle East. It's the one thing America can't stand, is Iran being the most powerful country in the Middle East. They want it to be Israel, because Israel is their ally. But if they use their head, the Americans, I bet it won't take much for them to ally themselves with the Iranians. Obviously, they'd have to prove themselves reliable allies, and that might take a few years. But, you know, they've got the power. Israel haven't. Israel's got nothing. Everything Israel had is gone. So let's see what happens in the next week or so. Probably nothing. You know what I mean? Donald Trump again with his Taco Tuesday. You know, it might be that. He might be all bluff again. And he might, I mean, who wants to deal with Kushner, and what's the other guy called, Wilcox, Wilcox, big cock, you know, He was one of Epstein's mates, I bet. But anyway, no one wants to deal with them. But Trump keeps sending them. He's sending them because he knows that they've not got a clue what they're doing. And that's that. If you've not got a clue, how are you going to expect to be successful in negotiations? Anyway, I'll leave this video here. Let's hope that I can get some more views and subscribers. I doubt it. I reckon I'll probably only get maybe the odd one or two. That's all I seem to be getting. So please like any part of this video, share it and subscribe, because the more subscribers I can get, the bigger audience I can speak to. Now, I'm not doing this for money. Just remember that. I don't want any money. I don't want donations for a cup of coffee. I don't want anything off no one. All I want to do is be able to produce videos and have my say. So please, if you can help me, I'll appreciate it very much. Anyone who speaks to me, comments on videos, I'm the first person to speak to them. I'll reply to everything. So I'm going to leave it here. I hope everyone's well, and I hope you've learned something today. Yeah? You learn something every day. Always remember that. Doesn't matter where it comes from, but someone learns something every day. Even I do. Someone like me who thinks he might know it all, or any other commentator who thinks they know everything. We don't. We learn something every day. Take care, everyone, and I'll speak to you soon. Bye-bye.